I believe in God not because I can prove him with equations or hold him in my hands, but because I've encountered something real, deep within myself, in moments no one else could see, in places no one else could go. These personal encounters aren't always dramatic. Sometimes they come quietly, like a whisper during a storm. Sometimes they're wrapped in pain, in tears, in desperation. But in those moments, when everything else fades, what I feel is not emptiness, it's presence. There are times in life when logic collapses, when science can't explain why your heart aches the way it does, when the answers don't come and nothing makes sense. In those moments, I've looked up, not always expecting an answer, but needing something more, and something always met me there. Not a voice from the sky, not a vision, but a calmness that wrapped around my anxiety like a blanket. Something told me I wasn't alone, that something is what I call God. Some might say these moments are just psychological coping mechanisms. But if that's all they are, then why do they come with such power? Why do they change people? Radically, permanently? Why do addicts recover, broken families reconcile, and grieving people stand up again when they've felt this presence? I've been in rooms where hope was dead, and yet a single prayer brought peace that medicine or logic could not. No one can convince me that's coincidence. Belief is not about ignoring facts or denying reality. It's about recognizing that not everything meaningful in this world can be measured. Love, grief, loyalty, forgiveness, these are all invisible forces, yet they shape us completely. God is like that, not visible, but undeniable when experienced. I've seen people forgive those who wronged them beyond comprehension, not out of weakness, but because something inside them, something higher, compelled them. I've seen people love past betrayal, sacrifice beyond reason, and endure more than human strength allows. These are traces of the divine in everyday life. When I think back on the darkest moments of my life, I can't explain how I survived them. Not really. Yes, people helped. Yes, time passed. But in the silence, in the nights filled with questions, I wasn't talking to myself, I was talking to God. And I wasn't left unanswered. Maybe not in the way I wanted, but in a way that let me breathe again. I didn't receive every solution, but I received strength. Not because I'm strong, but because something stronger than me carried me. There's a humility that comes when you realize you're not in control, and that no matter how powerful, smart, or prepared you are, life will still break you. And in those cracks, something sacred enters. That's where I've encountered God the most, not in church buildings or theology books, but in the broken spaces of my soul. And strangely, that's where I found peace. Sometimes it's the smallest signs that whisper the loudest. A perfectly timed call, a stranger's kindness, a line in a song that seems to answer your prayer. These aren't coincidences. They're encounters, personal ones, not shared in public, not displayed like evidence, but deeply transformative. Faith is built moment by moment like this. And though others may not understand, I do, because I was there, because I felt it, because I changed. Some people spend their lives demanding proof of God's existence. But personal encounters don't play by courtroom rules. They're sacred. They aren't about debate. They're about relationship. I can't show someone my emotions, but I can tell them I feel love. I can't measure hope, but I know when it's there. I can't package up God in a way that proves him beyond doubt. But I know he's real because I've met him in pain, in joy, in silence. And that is why I believe in a world where everything seems to shift, values, truth, even basic ideas of right and wrong. Faith in God gives me something fixed, something unmoved. It's not just about religion or tradition, it's about direction. Without a moral compass, we are left to define everything ourselves, influenced by culture, emotions, or convenience. But when I look at history, or even just the world today, I see what happens when people drift from any sense of higher moral accountability. Chaos follows. Self-interest takes over. Power corrupts. But belief in God brings a different framework. It's not always easy, but it gives meaning, responsibility, and a reason to live beyond ourselves. Faith in God is not about blind obedience. It's about a deeper understanding of what it means to live rightly. It means that goodness is not just a social construct or a passing trend. It's rooted in something eternal. When I believe in God, I believe that life matters, that every person has value, not because society says so, but because they are created with purpose. That belief changes how I see others, how I treat them, and how I make choices. It's not just a rule book, it's a calling to live with integrity even when no one is watching. Without a moral compass grounded in faith, morality can become whatever we want it to be. What's wrong today might be right tomorrow, if enough people agree. But that kind of shifting ground makes it easy to justify anything. Greed, cruelty, betrayal, if it serves our own goals. Belief in God resists that. It says that some things are always right and some things are always wrong, even if they cost us. Even if no one else agrees. It reminds me that truth isn't always comfortable, but it is always necessary. I don't always live up to the standard. No one does. But that's where grace enters. That's where the belief in a just and loving God gives room for both justice and mercy. The moral compass doesn't exist to make us feel guilty. It exists to guide us back when we stray. When I feel that deep inner conviction, not shame, but the pull to make things right. I believe that's God speaking, not to condemn me, but to call me higher. That's what faith does. It keeps pulling us toward who we were meant to be. Faith gives strength to resist what is easy in favor of what is right. In a world where cheating can bring success, where lying can bring applause, and where cruelty can bring control, faith demands something different. It tells me that character matters more than reputation. That honesty matters even when no one will know. That kindness is not weakness, and forgiveness is not foolishness. These things may not always make sense to the world, but they make sense when you believe there's a higher judge, a higher purpose. This kind of moral foundation also creates responsibility. It's not enough to believe in God privately. It affects how I speak, how I work, how I treat others. It doesn't let me turn a blind eye to injustice or pretend I don't see suffering. It reminds me that I am accountable not just to myself, not just to society, but to the one who gave me life. And that weight, that sacred responsibility, is not a burden, it's a compass. One that points not just toward personal success, but toward serving others. Even when the world is dark, faith in a moral compass gives hope. It tells me that evil does not win. That even if justice is delayed, it is not forgotten. That my choices matter, even if no one else sees them. I believe that what is done in secret will be revealed. That good is not lost in the noise. And that living with integrity is worth it, because there is meaning beyond what I can see. In a time when everyone wants to define their own truth, I choose to believe in one that was not created by me. I believe in a moral compass given by God, not to control me, but to free me. Free me from confusion, from regret, from chasing what doesn't last. It centers, it grounds me, and more than anything, it gives me peace. Not because I always get it right, but because I know the one who guides me never changes. That is why faith in a moral compass matters, and why I hold on to it with all I am. There are moments in life when all human strength fails, when no advice is enough, when even the people who love you can't carry your pain. In those moments, something mysterious happens when a person turns to prayer. It's not magic. It doesn't always change the situation, but it changes something within. Prayer, for me, is not just about asking God for help. It's about connection. It's about surrendering the weight I can't carry alone. In a world that constantly demands control, prayer allows me to let go. It's not weakness. It's the deepest kind of strength, admitting I need help from something greater than myself. Hope often feels like a fragile thing. It's invisible, often irrational, and sometimes hard to hold on to. But hope, when rooted in prayer, becomes powerful. It's no longer just wishful thinking. It's a quiet confidence that I'm not alone, that what I'm facing isn't the end, that someone hears me even when no one else does. I've seen people in hospital beds with nothing but a whisper of breath left, still praying. Not because they're delusional, but because they know that in the face of death there is still room for faith. That kind of hope isn't cheap. It's forged in fire. Prayer gives language to the heart when words fail. It can be as simple as a sigh or as desperate as a cry in the dark. I've prayed not because I was religious, but because I was broken. And in that space I found comfort I couldn't explain. Sometimes nothing changed around me, but everything changed within me. Peace would come out of nowhere. Clarity would rise out of confusion. Courage would emerge even while fear remained. That's the power of prayer. It doesn't always remove the storm, but it anchors you so the storm doesn't destroy you. I've watched people pray over impossible situations. Addiction, cancer, war, betrayal. And while the answers weren't always immediate, something changed. I've seen people hold on through things that should have broken them. I've seen mothers forgive the unforgivable, men walk away from revenge, and families find strength to heal wounds years deep. These are not coincidences. These are miracles born from people who chose to hope, who chose to pray even when it didn't make sense. Prayer isn't about perfect words or religious rituals. It's about honesty. Sometimes my prayers are messy. Sometimes they're angry. Sometimes they're filled with silence. But they're real. And I believe God honors that. It's not about impressing heaven. It's about opening the heart. In those moments of truth, found a kind of healing nothing else gives. No therapist, no self-help book, no motivational quote compares to the stillness that's after a raw, sincere prayer. Hope by itself is powerful, but it can fade when it's based only on circumstances. What happens when the job doesn't come? When the healing doesn't happen? When the person doesn't change? That's where hope tied to prayer becomes unshakable. Because it's no longer based on outcomes, it's based on relationship. I don't just hope in results. I hope in God. I trust that even if I don't understand, He does. That even if I don't see the full picture, He's still working. That belief helps me keep going when everything else says stop. Some of the strongest people I know are those who have prayed through silence, who kept trusting when there were no signs. That's real faith. That's real hope. It's not blind. It sees the darkness clearly, but still lights a candle. I believe that kind of hope can't be destroyed because it's connected to something eternal. And even in the worst moments, that kind of hope whispers, this is not the end. The prayer also has a way of changing perspective. When I start focusing on my problems, everything feels bigger than me. But when I pray, my focus shifts. I begin to remember that I'm not in control of everything. And that's okay. It humbles me, but also empowers me. It reminds me that I'm not alone, that someone bigger, wiser, and more loving holds the bigger picture. So when people ask why I still pray, why I still hope, I don't point to facts. I point to the peace I've found in the middle of chaos. I point to the strength that rose when I had none. I point to the countless silent moments where I should have fallen apart, but didn't. That's the power of prayer and hope. Not that they fix everything, but that they make everything bearable, that they transform the heart, sustain the soul, and give meaning when life feels meaningless. That is why I keep praying. That is why I still hope. When I look at the world around me, the sky stretched wide with stars, the rhythm of the oceans, the complexity of the human body, I don't see randomness. I see intention, I see design, I see a creation that points beyond itself. The universe, in all its vastness and detail, doesn't feel like an accident. It feels like the work of a mind far greater than ours, a creator who not only made things to function, but to inspire wonder. The human body alone is a miracle. The brain, with its billions of neurons and electrical signals, can process emotions, recall memories, and solve problems in milliseconds. The heart beats over 100 thousand times a day without us ever thinking about it. Our DNA holds more information than any computer system we've ever built, yet it's packed into microscopic cells. That's not chance. That's design. And the more science reveals about how life works, the more I believe in a divine intelligence behind it all. Science doesn't replace God. It reveals His fingerprints. Consider the laws of physics, gravity, thermodynamics, electromagnetism, all precisely balanced to allow life to exist. If the force of gravity were even slightly stronger or weaker, stars wouldn't form, planets wouldn't orbit, and life as we know it would be impossible. These constants didn't randomly fall into place. The universe didn't just happen to get everything right. It was finely tuned. And fine tuning, like any masterpiece, points to a master artist. The Earth itself is perfectly positioned. It's not too close to the sun to burn up and not too far to freeze. It rotates at just the right speed. It has the right atmosphere, the right mix of gases, the right magnetic field to protect us. Water exists in all three states, solid, liquid, and gas, because of Earth's perfect conditions. These are not coincidences, they are clues. Signs that we are not the result of chance but of purpose. Even in nature, there is a kind of beauty that seems unnecessary if life were just about survival. Think of the colors of a sunset, the symmetry of a snowflake, the song of a bird. Evolution may explain adaptation, but it can't explain all. It can't explain why certain things are not just functional but breathtaking. Why are we moved by art, by music, by the stars? These experiences speak to something deeper, something spiritual. They suggest we were made not just to survive, but to seek meaning, beauty, and connection. That desire itself is evidence of a creator who built it into us. The natural world operates with order and structure, not chaos. Ant colonies organize themselves without a central command. Trees communicate through underground root systems. Ecosystems stay in balance through intricate food chains and interdependence. Every species, every cycle plays a role. This kind of harmony suggests intentionality. And when something goes wrong, when balance is disrupted, it usually points to outside interference, not natural design. In other words, things are meant to work together. That's not random, that's a plan. Even human consciousness points to something higher. We're not just self-aware, we're capable of morality, love, sacrifice, imagination. We ask questions no animal asked. Why am I here? What is my purpose? Is there more than this life? These questions come from within, but they point beyond. They suggest that we were created not just as thinking machines, but as souls, that we're connected to something eternal. And if that's true, then creation isn't just physical, it's spiritual. Some argue that all of this came from a cosmic accident, a big bang followed by billions of years of chance. But accidents don't create meaning, explosions don't build libraries, randomness doesn't birth laws, structure, and love. The more I study the world, the more I'm convinced that faith and reason are not enemies, they are companions. Science can tell us how things work, but faith tells us why. There is something deep within us that recognizes design when we see it. We see a sculpture, and we know it had a sculptor. We read a book, and we know it had an author. So when we see the universe, vast, complex, beautiful, why should we assume it had no designer? For me, believing in a creator makes more sense than believing in pure chance. It gives meaning to the beauty around me and purpose to the life within me. That is why I see evidence of God not just in churches or scriptures, but everywhere I look. Creation itself is the first testimony, and it still speaks.